Here we are again with another episode of the Kinvestor Report, where I chat with industry experts to discuss the market, commodity stocks, and the economy. I'm your host, Arlen Hansen. Today, I'm joined by Simon Drake, the co-founder and managing director of Space Ventures Investors. Over the span of his career, Simon has focused on the concept of making space investing a reality for all investors and providing vital seed funding to innovative space startups. This interview is not investment advice. I'm not a financial planner, investment advisor, or geologist. If Kin or myself has any financial interest in any company mentioned in today's interview, it will certainly be disclosed. Do your own due diligence, please. I got to admit, I never thought in my lifetime we'd be talking about mining in space. So I'm super curious about this. I got tons of questions, and I hope that you learned something from this too. I think it's super cool. If you do like this video, tap that like and share button, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our latest and greatest wild updates. Simon, thank you for joining me today. How you doing?
Very good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm excellent. So I'm just going to bring this up now because, as I started thinking about how to interview on this, I couldn't help but think of the Muppet Show, the pigs in space. And for my older
Yeah.
audience out there, like, you'll get it. I know if you're 25 or 30, you'll have no idea who the Muppets are or what pigs in space was, but it was a staple in my family. And it just brings back memories. So there's a little bit of fun there. But yeah, I got questions about mining in space. So what's a little bit of background here for our audience about you and your background and what you do and why you're in this space?
I ask myself that every day. No, so I think about 2014, my business partner and I, we were looking for a new business to do, and we looked around and we could see AI was going to be a growth industry in space. If we'd chosen AI, I'd probably be a billionaire. No, I'm just joking. So we chose space, and we chose because we came from a marketing background, and also I came from a small business background as well, and I'd worked in many different industries. I thought, what's the thing that space needs? And it was space investing and how to tackle that, and being entrepreneurial and pig-headed, pigs in space. Um, so we decided to do things our own way, and we set up a small company called Space Ventures Investors and raised capital and started investing it in whatever startups were around back then, 2018 circa. And part of the marketing effort of that company was we made a lot of surveys and put them on the internet to try and gauge people's opinion of what they wanted about space. And I remember one day I was putting like a list of things like, do you want to invest in Earth observation companies? Do you want to invest in satellites? Do you want to invest in rockets? And I don't know why, but I just put in, do you want to invest in asteroid mining? Which, funny. And then after a few years of letting the survey run, I saw that like about 50% of people wanted to invest in asteroid mining. So there's this subset of space investing which was kind of taking off, and it had a crescendo. I think you might have read or seen like a few years ago the a lot of space SPACs like Virgin Galactic, and had this price went up and the went down. Anyway, in the background was this growing, for me, awareness that people wanted, space investing, but asteroid mining. And so I started researching, and it was like, well, hang on, that's to catch an asteroid is a bit of a,
Big deal.
yeah, a big deal. And but the moon is closer. So we started investigating what could be done on the moon, and then built a business about it, and pitched it to the European Space Agency Business Incubation Center, and they accepted our idea. And from that, we built a Lunar Resources Registry, and that's how this map came about. Yeah.
Well, so what's the Lunar Resources Registry?
Well, for me, it came about because I was at I think Space Resources Week in Luxembourg in 2019, and I was, I think back then there may be 300 academics, entrepreneurs from all around Europe, also from the US, Japan, I think Canada. And everyone is interested in space resources, and everyone's veering. It's kind of like the two camps. asteroids or moon, and on the moon, it's like, what is of value? Is it water trapped in as water ice trapped in the South Poles, which can be used for propulsion, or is it something like metals? And I could see that half the participants were academics who, do rigorous study, and the other half of the participants were, young engineers. They want to make cool stuff like moon rovers and stuff. But from a pragmatic point of view, I was thinking, none of this works unless you can build an interface between the two and industry. So we came up with a cadastral system for the moon and built a registry around it.
Okay, so does that mean that you're creating a registry to allow people to stake areas of the moon? Is that what is that registry? Like that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, so this is when the fun starts, which is the Outer Space Treaty prohibits any ownership of pretty much anything. So you can't in a traditional unexplored land. I'm from Australia, so I've read stories about, guys going out and putting a stake in the ground and tap, 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 and there you go. That's a no-no. So we look at it from a registry, from a data point of view of where are the areas that have what I call like $1 billion value in a mining terminology. Where would you go to make a moon mine, and why would you go there? Is it platinum group metals, or is it critical elements or rare earth elements? And from that, you start building a registry, more of where you actually want to go, and start building a data package about that particular area. And that data might be the resources that has been detected from orbiters and remote sensing, which have been in place for many years, thanks to the US, Japan, India. I think, yeah, there's a few more. So the registry for us was try and work out where things are in order to try and build a showcase to get more investors in and say, hey, if you really believe in mining the moon as a viable commercial opportunity, these are the areas you want to go to or you want to investigate, and hopefully land something at.
Mm-hmm. I have so many questions. Like
Go for it.
we're just gonna go down the rabbit hole in this. Um, so what kind of metals are on the moon?
Think of the moon and the earth pretty much formed from the same, composed of the same elements. Uh, Yet the earth has had billions of years of rising and cooling. And so a lot of the elements are grouped together in seams or veins. Subsurface, the moon is a different system. But on the surface, it's like it's where meteorites and asteroids get pulverized and keep churning each other up. So my personal investment theory about moon mining is go for platinum group metals, and there is no, as far as I know, seam which you might find in terrestrial mining, which you can find a seam and just keep at it. Um, it'll be platinum group metals dispersed with regolith, um, in areas that are dispersed with other regoliths. So for us, the challenge is finding areas where the presence of something like platinum group metal, which we're going to use nickel as a signal for that. We're going to use iron as a signal for nickel. So we're looking for areas that have a higher percentage of iron than other areas. And that becomes the starting place to say, okay, well, this is where you'd want to go and start sending landers to and sampling the regolith and trying to work out what is it really of value here.
Mm-hmm. And would these metals be coming from like the moon itself, or would they be coming from asteroids that have hit the moon?
They'd be coming mainly from M-type meteorites, which are mostly nickel.
Okay.
And when they come down and just the ejectors settle around the crater. Or you might find subsurface things if you dig down. I don't think from a technological point of view, in my lifetime, we'll be letting off nuclear bombs to make large craters to access subsurface metals. I'm sure someone will make a lot of money from that one day. It won't be me. But so I look at things of what is possible within my lifetime and with the technology we have that's been developed and is gradually being developed. And so I look at, well, what's the possibility of refining regolith and extracting metals of value that we know that we have a value on Earth and in space.
Mhm. Do you know if certain types of technologies that are used for early stage exploration in on Earth work as well up there that they do here? I just don't know. Like, like a mag, will a mag give the same type of reading like
You
up
mean like
there because of
a
different,
magnet, a
yeah,
magnet?
like mag IP or like IP induced polarization or like all these different ways to look for subsurface metals in the ground. Would they be using those technologies up there to?
Yeah, without going into too much technical detail, the orbiters that have been launched um, have been fitted out with whatever technology they can and sensors to analyze the lunar surface to try and detect iron, titanium dioxide, as an example, silicate. There's a whole range of sensors that they've used. It's called remote sensing, where it's basically orbiters that essentially map the moon, looking at it through a different lens, if you want to say.
Yeah.
Now, and not all of it is based on resources. Some of it might be like based on terrain or radar or something like lidar. Uh, I was looking at, I remember once something that was measuring the magnetism of the moon, because that, where it gets disrupted, then you kind of know, well, there's a lot of metal down there. Kind of points to, you know, a large metal deposit. So they've definitely, let's just say the scientists have been, I could say, trying their utmost to uncover or peel back the layers of the moon to work out what's there and of what's of value.
Yeah. And so I'm guessing all the existing satellites that are orbiting the moon or the Earth, or I don't know all the technical details on it, that are owned by various countries, like they're taking this data and the sampling of the moon and they own that data now themselves, correct? Is that kind of how it
Uh,
works?
yes, but the US have done something pretty amazing where they've released a lot of that data for free. So you can analyze that data and draw your own conclusions. Uh, and then I think they did this in a response to, well, I'll go back. Maybe they did this in response to the Chinese effort. So the Chinese have started going to the moon and replicating what the US have been doing, and the Chinese have been doing a lot of missions, a lot of sample return missions,
Mhm.
and the Indians are planning to do a sample return mission as well. So there's this, as I see it, there was, I think, 20 years of remote sensing, and now they're really focusing on missions with the sample and bring that sample back so they can further test what is in the regolith in order to ascertain what are the very valuable areas.
Hmm. Hmm. This one's going to be interesting. I just think down the road, my mind just spins. I'm almost losing questions of just like how big this opportunity is and how vast it is. It's just, it's wild. And
Yeah.
I don't think anyone 10 years ago could have ever imagined we'd even be talking about this. So like what's changed over these last 10 years for people to go like, wow, this is even a possible viability.
I think what is the biggest change is Starship, SpaceX's Starship, and the ability to bring the cost of launch down, which means it costs a lot less to get to the surface of the moon, um, because you need a lot of propulsion to get there, and you need a lot of propulsion to slow yourself down so you don't smash into it.
Hmm.
So the abilities of Starship to bring costs down overall, or basically bring the cost down per volume of the equipment you want to get there, means that it's getting more cheaper. I'm not saying affordable yet, but it's getting cheaper to look at potential lunar missions which are no longer science focused, or some country raising the flag. They might say, look, we actually want to set up something that is a resource focus, which means taking regolith and making a resource out of it. And the end market could be, extracting water and oxygen from the south, the freezing South Pole craters, which haven't seen sunlight in a billion years, and using that oxygen or water to sustain life on a moon base. I'm more commercially minded, and that kind of those commodities would be used to refuel spacecraft. Moving away from water ice as a resource, I look at the metals and think the opportunity is massive if you can get enough equipment there to do something that pays off.
Yeah, like what goes through my head is like, how do you get the infrastructure up there? Like the cost to build an earth milling operation, in the billions of dollars. And, we're transporting a ball mill from the United States up to Canada, right? Like we're not
Yep.
taking a ball mill. And I just don't know what kind of metal like engineering processes are. I just don't know. Right. So yeah, all sorts of questions on profitability and like how to get infrastructure up there, how to extract, how to get the metals back to Earth. It's a big, big project. What are environmentalists saying about this? Are there such things as moon-illists? Like, right? Are there people that
Yes,
out
there
there
are.
that fight for the protection of the moon as a untapped, beautiful resource?
Yeah, the politics around it is so there's always going to be a concern, an environmental concern, a spiritual concern, a or people just concerned about other people having fun and being adventurous. And then there's sovereign interests. So I personally I listen to it. As part of our registry, we set up our own system of making heritage zones to protect the Apollo crew missions and a lot of the early Soviet missions, which were quite pioneering. Because under the Outer Space Treaty, you're not allowed to go and land your lander next to someone else's lander. Because from an environmental perspective, once you land it, your propulsion system kicks up a lot of lunar regolith, which is small and sharp and dangerous, and will float out and take a while to settle. So there's environmental considerations for operating on the moon, which is fair, but the concern from people is quite comical because you meet people in your life who say, oh yeah, I chained myself to in a forest to stop a tractor taking out trees, and you go, wow, that's pretty amazing, like you actually did it.
Yeah, yeah, you've got a heart.
Yeah, you got a heart. But when I hear people saying that about the moon, I'm thinking, oh, are you gonna like
Yeah.
lie there on a piece
Strap
of
yourself to the
moon dust?
SpaceX.
It's just completely impractical. And the other point is that we're so early in the game that it seems a bit of a strange thing or concern to have. Like if we were blasting holes in the Tycho crater, that's a different thing. But
Hmm.
we're not.
Hmm.
At the moment, the lunar landers, half of them, get to the moon and crash or fall over. It's not really at this stage, it's not really a big concern. I kind of envisage that hopefully in our lifetime there are open cut mines on the moon because there's open cut mines on Earth. You can see them from satellite
Hmm.
imagery
Yeah,
and things.
100%.
Yeah, and an open cut mine, you would not see it from the moon. So you would not see it from Earth. You wouldn't even know it's there. So a lot of these environmental concerns are I think also these concerns are like a flavor of this part of our historical cycle. But on the other side, and I'm going to put a different hat on, is um, in the mining industry, as the platinum group metals and critical minerals get rise in value and get harder to extract, and you've got to dig deeper and go into more crazy jurisdictions. and the price goes up, it becomes even more affordable to go to the moon for it, where there are no native tribes. There is no warring factions.
Mhm.
No one on the moon's going to charge you tariffs, um,
Yeah, yeah.
as far as I know. So, in a weird way, to save Earth from further environmental degradation, whatever you want to call it, deeper mining or maybe more open cut mines. I'm like, we'll just go to the moon. Like if a mineral is there and it can be found and it can be profitable, um, it's a space resource, and this is what resources are for. It's they're there for us to use. And if people don't like that, then they can go back to the Stone Age.
Mhm. Okay, fair enough. Um, so what I picked up there though is like what I see a cycle of, the metals on Earth, and it's getting more costly to find, more costly to build. These resources are finite on Earth, right? To some degree, or they are finite. And yet you see the cost of potential mining in the States lowering. So that's basically the cycle that we're going through, is we're seeing that, right? Increased expenses in the US or on the Earth, decreasing costs in the space. Now this starts kind of making sense economically for me. Like I see that. Um,
Mm.
I still look back and go, yeah, but like what happens when we start blasting the Earth about gravity? Like it's so integral to like Earth even being Earth. Like how important, I think there still needs to be opposition on that side, just to make sure that the space investing doesn't become reckless, right?
Yeah. Well, I think if it became reckless, the whole world would be completely reckless at that point
Well,
anyway.
the whole world is reckless already.
Yeah,
Let's be honest. It's
it's
just
already gone
like,
downhill.
yeah,
Yeah.
like,
So the space investing side is still, as an industry, is still moving itself up. It's still trying to wean itself off government funding in some ways. And part of my role is to try and work out how to sell space to the retail investor and make sure that it's a profitable, and it becomes a blue chip investment, because earlier it was mostly just government funded. Uh, and now we have things like SpaceX, and the US space investing scene is quite advanced. But the space mining investment scene is still way early, because there's so many risk factors in there. But the biggest risk that we think of is environmental problems. It's not going to happen. First of all, to make a visible difference to the moon, you need a lot of energy. And we're just not there yet.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay, so talk to me. Like you want to make space investing a reality for investors. So is there any options for people to be investing in this space right now? Like
yeah,
publicly traded companies or anything like that?
there's publicly traded companies. Probably the most, the young gun at the moment is probably something like Rocket Lab, where they have their own launch vehicle and they're listed. Um, there's a few other companies like the Japanese iSpace company that's listed in Japan. There's quite a few satellite operating companies uh, that are also listed. So I track about, I think, 20, maybe 30 different space stocks. Some of them more aerospace with a bit of
Yeah.
space.
Well, you're
So
gonna need those aerospace technology to make space mining a reality. So correct,
yeah,
right? So like that is part of investing into to mining space.
yeah, but there is no pure play space mining stock. We're
Hmm.
working to change that. Uh, yeah. Also, the whole space mining field has got is strewn with the carcasses of companies that tried it and just went bust. So I, as an individual coming from a small business background, I'm like, you can't have a company that has a vision and goes bust. You've got to survive. Otherwise, it's just a wasted effort. Uh, so I I feel that the evolution of investing, as we go through different cycles, at the moment we're at the, depends who you talk to. I would throw a dart and say, we're at the kind of the end phase of the AI boom. It's been great, awesome. And then at some stage there's going to be another space investing cycle, and hopefully a space mining cycle. And And hopefully it's in tune. Well, it's built on the technical ability to actually extract resources on somewhere like the moon for a profit.
Yeah. Has anyone like started doing engineering studies on like how to dig these up and like mining processes and even wrapping their heads around economically of what, hey, like if we've got $1 billion asset here, like how does this make sense? Has anyone done that work yet?
Yeah, there's so in Europe, I'm in contact with a lot of young companies that are working on um, how to solve all the different parts in the value chain. And what I found really interesting, and what makes me an optimistic, is that my part was just to build a registry. No one else that I know of really wants to build a registry. They probably think it's boring. But other teams I've met, they work on how to extract water, oxygen from regolith. Other teams I've met, they work out how to extract metal from regolith. Uh, Other teams or startups I've met, they're working on different ways to apply sensors on the lunar surface to detect resources. It's quite interesting that, in a world where the news flow is, whatever, uh, parallel and like an undercurrent, there's a whole energetic community, also in North America as well, that is thinking, yeah, we just want to, work out how to extract space resources or resources from the moon. And some of them even go further and go, well, they try and work out how to do it for asteroids. I chose the moon because I had to choose something. You can't have a business that's all over the shop.
Can't spread yourself too thin there, Simon.
Yeah, no. Well, the thing is with these things, you look at the grand picture, then you kind of have to focus and narrow it down and narrow it down and narrow it down, and find out. And back to your other point about like business modeling, uh, there's many of us who do the business modeling, and the business modeling changes, and because people say, oh, it'll never be affordable to take, like a crude platinum. Let's say you got a crude bar of a mixture of platinum group metals, which needs to be refined. People will say, well, there's never going to be a value in taking them back to Earth. I'm like, you know what? It's let the market work that out. People pay an exorbitant price for jewelry anyway, or an exorbitant price for luxury items. The first customer for resources from the moon, it's going to be a luxury item. In time, it'll just be more about extracting resources from the moon to build infrastructure on the moon and deep spacecraft. Why ship stuff from Earth when you can extract it from the lunar regolith cheaply and effectively? So these technologies are still way ahead of us, and where we're at now is, how do you where to explore, what to explore, what to explore, who's the customer? This is a big question. Who is the customer?
I just want to say that anything from the moon is, or the space seems to be a luxury item. I collect minerals and rocks, and when I see asteroids or meteorite specimens, I'm always like, yeah, that looks good, and they're beautiful, but man, they're expensive, right?
Yeah.
They're stunning pieces, and you can cut them and make jewelry out of them, and da da da. Like they're not cheap, right?
No, well, this is the I think the first market. Uh, but I look at on it that, moon mining is not meant to be a little craft market. It has to be at an industrial level. It has to have value. And when you look at a price chart of something, and its price is kind of everything. It shows you what's going on. When I look at the because with our registry, we also look at all the missions that are going to the moon, and every time there's a new mission to the moon, we track it. Where is it going? Why is it going there? And when I look at the amount of money the US, Chinese, Japanese, Indians are putting into it, I'm like, they're not doing this just for science.
Or shits and giggles.
Yeah, just in giggles. Yeah, I have a feeling that they're doing this because they want it. And so what I also do is I go back in history, not personally, and I read a good example is the Spanish, um, discovering the Americas and carting a lot of gold and silver back to Europe, and that income enabled the Spanish Empire to stomp around Europe in those days and assert itself. And the English were very annoyed about that. I think it was Queen Elizabeth sent her famous pirate Sir Francis Drake to try and get some of that, which he did. And so the let's say the treasure that he brought back to England was instrumental in changing the course of England. And the gold and silver that the Spanish were getting out of the Americas was instrumental for them. And this is the stakes that is at play here. It's if you find the right deposit and the right means of extracting wealth out of it, it can significantly change the course of a country.
That's actually something that resonates with me. Like if you're seeing this amount of money being spent, like there's a reason behind it, and
Yep.
like a big reason. And it might, and you're right, it's not just for science or hey, this is cool. There's got to be some sort of like fear or panic, or not, panic might not be the right word, but just like positioning of like we know what's going on, and we see the resources being depleted, and we need to find a way to secure these resources. So that's why we're putting so much money. Same reason why Russia bought all that gold before they went to invade Ukraine. Like they knew what was going on. They're like, okay, we're going to load up with gold. We're going to go invade Ukraine, and we're going to use those gold reserves to finance us down the road after gold. Like they were playing chess well before anybody else. And this is what I feel is like a little bit of a chess game from the countries. When I hear that from you, is like they see or know something that they're not really, they're very serious about this. And
Yeah,
right.
that's how I feel about it. Is that the first of all, China does not need to ask anyone's permission to do anything. Whereas something like Europe has to put their heads together and really say, oh, do we need to do this? Do we need to do this? And they did sign off, I think last year on their own project to go to the moon there, and it cost nearly $1 billion. So they're a bit behind, but they commit to it in a different way. And they say, right, we're going to just build a big lander. Not going to have a little small lander. We're going to have a big lander. So they finally got to it, and then think in their own way of getting ahead. Whereas at the moment, I think the upcoming Chinese Indian missions are more landers, rovers, sample return, and of course, then there's the the US Artemis missions coming up.
How long does it take to get to the moon now versus when they first went to the moon?
I think the Apollo crew missions took 3 days. Other missions are taking a slower approach of maybe 30 days because they're smaller craft, and the kind of burns they do, they have to take a slower approach.
Yeah, okay. I had my idea that it was like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks to get up there, but that's my uneducated approach about space mining and going to the moon.
Well, look, I have a feeling that this industry is going to be well, not led, but staffed by robots. It's just too dangerous. I feel to
Be
put
setting up
someone's life at
humans.
risk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
because humans need a stable temperature and you know
Oxygen,
oxygen and
water, food,
yeah, water,
human
plumbing.
human connection to like to
Yeah,
be normal, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, so you monitor all these different missions to the moon. Like how often are people landing up there?
The frequency has increased. I think this there was the Firefly mission, which we had a digital version of our map on the Firefly life ship Copernic space payload, which is kind of interesting. And then there was an Intuitive Machines within a month, and that kind of landed on its side. And I think a Japanese ice space Hakuta R is their second mission is coming up. So there's a lot of, and these recent ones, they're more they have more of a commercial approach, where, for example, NASA would try and get commercial partners to help out fund the mission. So there's investors stepping up, to partake in these missions. And this is a great sign because we Earthlings have not had this ability to fund these kind of missions since the days when Europe was funding privateer missions to unlock the great wealth of Canada.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All that
Yes.
all that fur and blubber and
Yeah, yeah. So obviously this industry has been financed by governments, right? Are we seeing a shift where we're starting to see private money or institutional want to step into space and explore yet?
yeah, I think Draper Technologies. I was researching they were planning a lander. Um, Now, sourcing the funds and how the funds came about probably needs a lot more work because sometimes you start researching and you think, well, why would a fund do that? Do they have do they say, well, let's allocate 0.1% of our 10 billion to something cool and funky? Uh, so and how do they justify the investment? It's still for them. It's their own business. I see from my side that we have an active list of potential investors who want to invest in things like this, and so far our shareholders have been quite happy supporting us when we funded this company, Lunar Resources Registry. So there's interest. The the surveys I've made about these investors to try and gauge what they think is they accept like a 5 to 10 year timeline of return on investment. They don't have this expectation that it's got to be done in 6 months and double your money. It's a 10 bagger or something like that. They understand that these things take time, and that the end goal is it has to be outsized. It can't be an incremental change in their in their quality of life through in one investment.
Yeah,
Through
like I'd be thinking as a fund going, okay, even if I put my fund money of 0.1% of my $100 billion fund, they still have to justify some sort of mammoth potential return on that, right? Like they kind of do. Like you can't just go, hey, we're going to throw this just for a risk and whatever, but I don't even know what the potential return would be. Like they'd have to still come up with a base case on what the potential return on that investment would be for their investment committee. And so, yeah, I'm curious if there's even like, we're not even maybe that far yet in the space mining ventures to kind of put numbers like that in front of institutions, right? Or say, hey, we found a deposit and it's got $20 billion worth of in situ metals, and we're wrapping our heads around a feasibility study to make this economically viable. I could see a fund being, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense because if you make this work, that's what this is going to be worth. But maybe those numbers just aren't there yet for people.
well, with a bit of fancy Excel modeling, anything can happen.
Yes. Yes.
So from my own modeling, there are areas that have a $1 billion potential, and it is based on processing a lot of regolith. Not it's maybe similar to an open cut mine over a 5 year period, and this is where we're getting to in saying, okay, space mining, lunar mining, it's about a few different locations. This is the object or the prize. This is the prize in today's terms, giving it a monetary value. And this is the engineering task that needs to be done. So it's starting to take shape as it's nowhere near what you'd see with a terrestrial mine. Like we've all invested in early stage mining companies and mid stage, and you track
Not
their
me. Not me.
progress. Not you. You're the smart one.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Okay, let's go. I interrupted. Sorry, go ahead.
that's right. Well, anyway, so from my experience of having been invested in, and no surprise, I have invested in gold, silver, uranium, copper companies at different stages. And I draw a lot of inspiration from how they do things in order to kind of lay that as a template over on how to build a lunar mining operation. Because it's the same thing. You need finance, you need a vision, you need an engineering process, and you need investors and you need backers. And so it's just slowly coming together. But from an investor mentality point of view, every investor knows that it's the things. I think I'm paraphrasing Mark Twain, but in the other way, what did he say? It's the things that it's the things. It's not the things that you do know that undo. It's the things that no. It's not the things you don't know that undo. It's the things you do know that just that don't seem so.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
I would say, for a lunar mining point of view, it's the inquisitiveness. Like we're just, we don't know, but we also know that there's something there. So you've got to like edge it on and push it on and push it on and push it on.
Yeah. So I want to make an analogy here. I want to see how this lands. To me, this is almost the discovery of the internet. We got something big. We have no idea where it's going to go. It's something here and it's open source and it's meant to be free. And then like the sector got hot because they started seeing potential to make money. And that's when we got in that tech boom. So like I look at space, like when I think about a concept like this, looking at putting money into some of these space ventures, it's almost like if the industry as a whole starts getting generally accepted by the investors and the billion-dollar funds and all those, and more money start plowing into this because it looks more of a reality, that's when investors are going to go, oh my God, if I put money into this, I could make 100x on my money. And then they're not going to care what they throw money at because everything in the industry just gets that bump, right? Does that make sense? Like think about all those .com companies that went to 200 million, 500 million, whatever market cap, ridiculous market cap without a business plan, right? Or a business plan written down on a bunch of pieces of paper, and then they went public. And investors went crazy because it was just in that space. And that makes me curious about this. It's like, wow, if this is becoming like an AI concept or an internet concept or something like that, this, I keep on saying space, but yeah, the space of space investing could really just go crazy, whether or not they're viable companies or not, because I find that investors don't really dig that deep in the end. They just want to buy because they want to be part of it.
Yeah, but I don't know if Elon Musk said it. How do you become a millionaire in the space industry? You start with $1 billion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just recently, ISAR Aerospace, a new European launch company. We're trying to get an orbital rocket going from a launch pad in Europe, and I think it got 30 seconds off the ground and fell and created a big fireball.
Mhm.
Um, so investors can see pretty quickly
The
if what they,
risks.
yeah, the risks. So you can kind of find out how something is going because how they actually perform and do they achieve certain goals. And I don't think that the space industry is going to get away with it like the .com industry did, because the .com industry, in my mind, there were two parts of it. One was building the infrastructure that made the digital revolution possible. So after the .com was come and gone, there was still the infrastructure in the ground, which enabled, you know, us to have a high bandwidth lifestyle post .com boom. But at the same time, .com boom, there was a lot of, sharks and charlatans and whatever. Yeah. I read was it Madness of Crowds or Extraordinary Delusions, written in 1847 by someone Mackay or something. And he wrote about the South Sea bubble, and how every day there was a new company coming on the London Stock Exchange. And you read through this text, and it's like a company of grand ambitions to, go to Canada to a secret location and extract timber or something. And these grand names of companies were just rolling along, and people were buying them up because that was the moment of fervor. Um, and I believe that's what happened with the .com boom. You see a bit of it with the AI boom. You definitely saw it in the crypto world. But I don't think with space mining, I'll profit from that. I don't see like that coming my way, because at the end of something like space mining, you've got to have to pass through so many hurdles and hoops to get to a point of believability. So for us, we've had to go through with this company, Lunar Resources Registry, we had to get into a European Space Agency Business Incubation Center, which the process was, quite, academic. And then we're now in a Thales Alenia Space Business Catalyst, and the process was quite, thorough. So the industry itself, it weeds out grand ideas that don't have any base, and
That
and it
makes
keep
sense.
and it keeps ideas and individuals that have the commitment and the intellectual property or the inventions
Hmm.
going. Uh,
Yeah, that
so
makes sense to me. Yeah.
yeah, that's how I see it playing out. Now, I'm not saying that somebody can sneak in there and pull some, sprinkle some gold dust and
3x2 on the moon.
yeah, yeah,
What?
yeah,
What?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm sure that's gonna be coming up, and I'm sure there's some kid at home, thinking, oh,
Yeah, well, there'll be a Netflix documentary on some guy trying to throw a party up there and it all
yeah,
failing, like the fire festival, right?
yeah.
That'll
I
be,
never saw that, but
oh man, great, great, great flick. It was just like I just yeah, it just rung so true in my life and just like the people I meet in this industry on how they get attached to a concept and they'll die trying to make it work, like in the end
yep,
because of their egos or they just can't accept the fact that this is done. And what they'll do after they understand that, like that's when humans go crazy, right? Like, and that's like, so anyways, off topic about fire. Great fic. If you
yeah.
haven't
But
seen it, go see it.
no, but it's a good thing because in something like lunar mining, the narrative and can change the narrative, the demand, the concept of. So the big question we get is, well, who's the customer? That can change. So one mistake at the moment is, oh, we're going to go to the moon, we're going to mine something. We're not actually going to mine, more like harvest, or extract, use a lot of energy to extract water from, inner South Pole. And then who's your customer? Well, if your customer is a space agency, then it's not really a viable business model because a space agency is subject to the whims of the politicians. Politicians can be changed in every 4 or 5 years. Money can be moved away from space programs. This has happened quite a few times, I think, in the US with the different lunar programs. They get hyped up and then you don't hear about it. So I'm very cognizant of the what we do. You have to change with the market framework and keep things on track. And so the market might be a different mineral in 5 years. The demand might come from, a different angle.
I was just gonna ask out of curiosity and like, do we know of any metals or elements up there that are not on Earth? Has anything been found that's like, oh wow, we've never seen this on Earth before?
If they'd found it, they wouldn't tell us about it.
Ooh, what is this? We don't want people to know.
Yeah,
Unobtainium.
unobtainium. Yeah. What I've read about the lunar samples that have come back, everything's in such a small size or percentage. Um, so there's what's in the universe is pretty much going to end up on the moon. But it's just what meteorite landed there or there, and I see the investor appetite is to start going to different areas and collecting samples and saying, all right, we have a good idea of what's in this particular crater, and it changes our view on craters of that kind or areas that have this particular remote sensing signature. So as the data layers get better and better, people will be able to start to say, well, this is where we really want to go and extract something of value. Now, the interesting thing I find about the composition of regolith is if you are going to go to an area and filter 100 tons of regolith for platinum, you're going to get a lot of other things as well. So a mining operation might not be a pure one resource; it'll be multi-resource focused. if they're using enough energy on it, they'll try and get everything possible out of it.
Okay. Before we wrap up here, if the space becomes widely accepted, who do you think the companies that benefit first from? Is it going to be like the people that provide the picks and the shovels for the space mining companies? Like, is it going to be like the people who make the satellites or the equipment for it? Or like, who's going to benefit first? Like, AKA, give me some stock names here, Simon. Let's go.
Uh,
Not investment advice, just some ideas to look at if you ever want to consider looking at investing in space.
yeah, look, this is, I don't want to give stock names because, um, but all you've got to do is, if you look at the big aerospace companies with a space division in the US and Europe, they're there. They've all working on a lunar lander or a lunar rover, or some kind of component which fits into a cislunar architecture between the Earth and the Moon. They're all on it, and quite often they're there because they're getting the large space agency contracts to build something to fulfill a strict purpose, and that's fine. That's great. This is how the world works. My feeling is that it's going to be the small upcoming companies that develop something for a niche purpose. In my case, we're looking for the engineering that makes a moon, sorry, processing regolith a profitable reality.
Hmm.
So back to your question, is it the guy selling the picks and shovels? Yes, it is. However, in all the gold rushes, it was the first guy that tripped over a golden nugget.
Who made
That
all the money?
Yeah, that made, he got it all. Everyone else was just tagging along. So there's different waves of wealth creation here.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I have a interesting way of observing it, that a lot of a lot of what was easily accessible on Earth has already gone. Like, I live in Europe. You're not going to walk down into a forest and find a
Iron ore deposit.
yeah. I used to live in Sydney. You're not going to go to Bondi Beach and find, someone's wedding ring in the sand, because I don't know, every morning there's somebody with a metal detector.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I lived on Bondi Beach for about 8 months of my life. Like I
There you
know
go.
that I worked at the Liberty Cafe like for you like good times down there. But yeah, metal detectors
Yeah,
everywhere. There's someone there
yeah,
trying to, yeah, 100%. That's a good
yeah.
analogy.
So where we're at with the moon is, it's another planet. No one's walking around. A lot of the remote sensing is way up in an orbit. There's no there's As far as I know, there's been very, very few or no low lunar orbit remote sensing. There's been only a handful of lunar sampling missions. Most of the objects on the moon, if you can look at one of our maps, are probes that have, intentionally been impacted the moon, uh, or things that have gone to one area. And even then, they wanted to go to an interesting area, but they overshot. So there's so much exploration to be done for the easy to find things.
Well, I'm gonna put on I can only
Pigs in
imagine
space.
what a promote, yeah, pigs in space, and I'll just bring this up. I can just see Vancouver promoters saying, you should see the size of this unexplored land package we have up there.
Yep.
It's so big. Yeah. Anyway, that's where my mind goes. Simon, thank you so much. That was super
Yes.
cool. I felt a little unprepared for this because it's just such a vast conversation. So I'm learning. I think it's really cool, really interesting. It's you told me that you're not a billionaire yet, so I'm a little disappointed that that I even invited you on the show, but
Another one slipped through
another one slipped through. But man,
again.
I hope I learned something. That's cool. It's super intriguing. It's wildly out there. And again, I never thought we'd be even talking about this ever in my life.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
How and when would you invest in a lunar mining operation? What signal from your put on your commodity investing cap, what signal would you need to make you, write that check or hit that buy button, hit the bid button?
Oh, I'm a data guy, so I need
A
to see
data guy.
like I need to see economic numbers,
Yep.
right? Like I would need someone to say, here's the risk, or here's the opportunity, here's the upside, and then have a very good understanding of what my risk is.
Yep.
Now I'm a little different. Everyone is different how they make their investment, but that's what I would need. Like I think it's cool. But I also understand, like I'm a big believer in these industries get pickup. And when they do, and the world starts investing in these industries like crypto, like the internet, like the entire space, there's opportunities to make money in the entire space. It's like a rising tide lifts all boats, right? And then the strongest companies survive. And then
Mm.
there'll be the crooks that, fraudulently take money from people. And then there'll be all sorts of companies in between. Right. So I think there's an opportunity to make money here. This was like my first call to even try to start figuring it out. Like what kind of an opportunity is there? And I probably have more questions than answers right now, but that's where we start.
Yep.
That's where we start.
Yeah. No. Yeah. My job is to de-risk and understand what investors want.
Yeah.
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 Because on one side you had this that fantastic idea, and on the other side you've got the reality.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Well, Simon, that wraps it
great.
up. Thank you for joining me on the show today. That was super fun, super cool. You can stay up to Simon at his website, spaceventuresinvestors.com.
And lunarresourcesregistry.com,
And
where there's
Lunar
a free
Resources.
map of the moon, a 3D map of the moon. You can
Oh,
play with
cool.
it,
Right
explore.
on.
It's great.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure we put that link in our YouTube channel there. And if you haven't already, be sure to join the Kinvestor Network by subscribing to our channel, following us on social media. And if you liked what we talked about, like that video and comment, give Simon some love for giving us some of his free time. It's very valuable. And until next time, that's the Kinvestor Report. Have a good day.
Thank you, Arlen.